Welcome everyone. Just a short little introductory video for you guys to kind of introduce what's going on with the course, how we're going to approach this stuff. And so I just want to start by going all the way back to the beginning. And if you think about, government, if you think about, the state, how things, operate, how do we get here? And so the first question that I would have to ask is, how did we get here? How do we have the system of government that we have? Why did they have a different system in ancient Greece? Why did they have a different system in, Southeast Asia? All these different types of governments, where did it all come from? And so what we're going to look at is basically just some theory, all right? Just some philosophical nonsense in how the state originated. So if you go back and you think about, okay, how did government start? Probably the first thing that comes to your mind is who was able to make other people do what they wanted them to do. So what we call that theory is the force theory. And the force theory basically is, I'm the biggest, baddest guy on the block, so I can make you do what I want you to do. Therefore, you have to follow my rules. So that's the force theory. Interesting story about this. We used to play a game when I was in elementary school called King of the Hill. Some of you guys may be familiar with King of the Hill. And on our playground, when I was in second or third grade, they were doing street repairs, and they would put all the concrete and the asphalt on the playground while they're digging up the street. So you had this huge mound. Of course, when you're in third grade, everything's, every pile of dirt is like a mountain. So I remember when the teacher would say, okay, recess, everybody would sprint out the doors. And the first person that got to that big pile of rubble was the first king of the hill. Well, that was always me because I was the fastest kid in my class. I was always fast. The problem was I was also the smallest kid in my class. So I lasted about that long as king of the hill, and somebody knocked me off. So by the end of recess, what you had was the big kid, in your class up on top of this mountain, and nobody could knock him off. So those were, that's kind of this idea. So we'd all go back into class all bloody, and teacher would yell at us, but fun times. But that'd be the force theory. I can make you do what I want you to do, so therefore you have to do what I want you to do. Second thing would be what we call the evolutionary theory or the family theory. And this goes back to this whole patriarchic system where, the men are in charge and they're in charge of the family, and the wife has to do what the husband says. And of course they have kids, and, the dad then tells the kids what to do. So it just evolved kind of out of that and kind of created a government and it just evolved from that. And then we have what divine right theory. You guys might be familiar with that. And that is this idea of a king or a monarch. I rule by the grace of God. God chose me and my family. So therefore, since I'm good at what I do, I'm good at being the ruler, you have to obey me because God has ordained it. And since he chose my family, my lineage, my son will also be king when he gets old enough, when I pass on. So that would be the divine right theory. But we're not going to focus on any of these because when we look at the United States and kind of what happened with us, this started back, roughly 1600s. There was a guy, a couple of authors that we're going to talk about, Thomas Hobbs and John Locke. And they put forth what we know as the social contract theory. And that's the one that I want you guys to focus on, is this one. So the first author that we're going to talk about is a guy who wrote a book called Leviathan. His name is Thomas Hobbs. And you probably can't see this picture very well. But basically, this is a picture of the ruler. And he's holding a scepter and a sword, which means I rule by the grace of God. And this sword over here means that I have the authority, the power. And you can see his chainmail. What his chainmail is made up of are people. And so what the social contract is basically saying is the king gets to rule. But the reason the king gets to rule, this is a little bit separate from the divine right theory. Yes, we have a king, but the reason the king can rule is because the people give him the authority. Now, in Leviathan, what he was talking about was, okay, nature and the state of nature without any government, it's awful. It's chaos, anarchy, nobody's making anybody behave, and basically you're fighting over food and, all that nonsense. So what the people, in this theory goes, what they needed was somebody to make them behave, make them not be, so just caveman-like, and this survival of the fittest thing. So enter Leviathan. And this is a biblical reference to Leviathan in the Bible, but the king personifies Leviathan. I'm all powerful, and you need me. Without me, you guys live in chaos. So you need me. However, that's divine right theory, right? But no, social contract says the people need you. So therefore, we give you the authority to rule. But we want something in exchange. If you are going to be our ruler, if you're going to be our king or whatever, then you need to basically protect us and take us out of the state of nature, take us out of chaos, and make sure life goes smoothly. And that's it. What Hobbs was talking about, though, was once that's established, that contract between the people and the ruler it's forever. And you must obey me. And the people are like, all right, well, we're at the king's mercy because he's the only one that can take us out of the state of chaos. So here we are. Doesn't sound like America, though, does it? We don't have somebody that rules in perpetuity. We basically can change our rulers if we want to. So enter John Locke. And this is the guy that you need to pay attention to. We're going to have an assignment over this guy. We're going to have a reading. But John Locke basically changes it up a little bit. He says, yes, absolutely. Government needs to do their job, and the people give the authority of the government to rule. But here's the thing. If government doesn't do what they're supposed to do, we can change it. And that's the difference between him and Hobbes, because Hobbes says, king rules forever. You can't do anything about it. You need us, you gave us the authority, but we're going to be here. Locke takes a different viewpoint and basically says, we give you the authority and we agree to obey you, but if you don't hold up your end of the contract, therefore social contract theory, then we can change it. So that's the big difference. So what we're going to do is I'm going to turn you guys loose. And there's a reading that I have on Canvas that I want you to do. So you can click on assignments. It'll be there. And read the essay. And there's some questions that I want you to answer. And then be ready with those answers to those questions when we come back to class the next day. All right? So hopefully this gave you kind of an intro as to how this is going to work. And we're going to read that assignment. And I'll catch you guys back next time. Awesome.